Greetings, true believers, and welcome to another incredible episode of History of the Marvel Universe. This week's tale begins in a distant star system known as the Keystone Quadrant, near the star Sirius Major. Hundreds of years ago, humanoids from an unidentified part of the galaxy settled on an inhabitable world in the remote system, far from galactic civilization. The location was chosen to serve as an asylum for mentally ill members of their race who had been shunned and outcast by the rest of their society. The ancient alien psychiatrists who accompanied them studied their various conditions for years, attempting to discern effective treatments for their different illnesses. While they did, robots built by the psychiatrists saw to the patient's physical well-being. In addition, the doctors had brought a wide range of animal species to act as emotional support for their charges. However, things changed in the Keystone Quadrant when the doctors learned that their budget had been completely cut, forcing them to return to their homeworld. The psychiatrists and scientists left their patients to their robotic caretakers. They also left behind a physical copy of the logbook from their primary vessel, the Starship Gideon, which detailed their mission statement and research, as well as a massive ring called the Galatian Wall, which encircled the quadrant and generated a force field preventing anyone from entering or exiting. Generations passed, and while the descendants of the original patients didn't necessarily suffer from the same mental illnesses as their parents, they were undoubtedly affected by their insane environment and came to be known as the Loonies. They were watched over by their robot guardians and kept company by their animal companions. However, things changed again when a nearby star went supernova, causing a strange radiation to pass over the planet. While its organic inhabitants were unaffected, the radiation caused the robotic caretakers to surpass their original programming and gain a new form of sentience. Seeking freedom from their mission, the robots sought a replacement and began experimenting on the patient's animal companions. Through genetic manipulation and bionic implants, the animals were granted human-like intellect and dexterity. The machines then retreated to their own side of the planet, where they began constructing a massive humanoid vessel intending to one day leave the Keystone Quadrant. To that end, their half of the planet was mined raw, becoming an industrial wasteland with sprawling cities. The other side remained lush and green, and the planet's dual nature soon earned it the name Halfworld. At some point, the Loonies founded their own religion around the Gideon's logbook, which they referred to as the Halfworld Bible, although neither they nor their animal caretakers were capable of reading it. The straitjacket-wearing priests were called the Good Humor Men, and they worshipped the ancient psychiatrists, who they called the Shrinks. The three factions lived in peace on Halfworld, with the animals serving as intermediaries between the Loonies and the robots. While the animals watched over the Loonies, some of them designed toys for them, which were then manufactured by the robots. This eventually led to an economy based around the production and sale of such toys, which the Loonies paid for using currency in the shape of animal crackers. There were some who sought to use this new status quo to gain power and influence, such as the mole Judson Jakes. The head of Interstellar Mechanics, Jake had under his employ the intelligent tortoise, Uncle Pico, who was responsible for the creation of a group of android clowns, as well as Blackjack O'Hare, the mercenary leader of the Black Bunny Brigade. Jake's primary rival was a reptile by the name of Lord Divine, the head of Divinities Inc. During this time, Rocket Raccoon spent his time as a sheriff and a ranger, watching over the Loonies and keeping order on a mad world. His closest allies were his girlfriend, an otter named Lila, and her uncle, a wise old walrus named Walrus. Interestingly, while Wall lacked the more humanoid appendages of his compatriots, the robots had outfitted him with a pack containing prosthetic arms. His tusks were also mechanical, and he could swap them out for ones with different functions, like his trusty taser teeth. Since the Loonies respected Rocket, he provided them with police uniforms for their amusement. This bumbling arm of law enforcement were called the Keystone Cops, but were better known for their cartoonish antics. Halfworld's first real interaction with the Marvel Universe as we know it soon happened when Rocket and Wall came upon the unconscious form of the Green Goliath most Marvelites recognize as the Incredible Hulk. After an encounter with the energy being known as the Galaxy Master, the Hulk was transported through space, causing him to penetrate the Galatian Wall and land on Halfworld. It was around this time that Judson Jakes dispatched the Black Bunny Brigade to steal the Halfworld Bible, suspecting the secrets within would be of considerable value. Lila was also kidnapped as she was the heir to a considerable fortune. As it turns out, Judson Jakes' company formerly belonged to Lila's parents, with Jakes as their chief toysmith. After secretly having Lila's parents assassinated, Jakes took control of the company, making himself Lila's guardian. Both Lila and the Halfworld Bible were brought back to Jake's orbital headquarters, the Space Wheel. Joined by the Hulk, Rocket and Walrus took their ship, the Raccoon, and headed to the Space Wheel, fighting their way through the Killer Clowns. Rocket successfully defeated Blackjack O'Hare and rescued Lila. Meanwhile, Uncle Pyko, having discovered a method of penetrating the Galatian Wall, sent the Hulk back to Earth, fearing his presence would upset the balance of power on Halfworld. Rocket Raccoon returned the Halfworld Bible to the Loonies, and following that adventure, Lord Divine succeeded in taking over the Space Wheel and hired the Black Bunny Brigade away from Jakes, who then relocated to the equatorial border between the two halves of Halfworld, where he reincorporated as Mayhem Mechanics. There he rebuilt his forces by manufacturing more members of his Psycho Circus. After that, the trade war was fully ignited when Jake sent one of his killer clowns to assassinate Divine's chief toysmith. Things on Halfworld quickly erupted, with multiple parties vying for control and fortune. Uncle Pyko again obtained the Halfworld Bible, seeking another opportunity to translate the ancient text. Meanwhile, Divine had Blackjack O'Hare capture Lila, intending to force her into a marriage and gain control over Mayhem Mechanics. However, Blackjack went rogue and intended to keep Lila for himself. Rocket Raccoon and Walrus rushed off to rescue Lila from the Black Bunny Brigade, but the scene erupted into chaos with the arrival of Judson Jakes' killer clowns, as well as Lord Divine's gaseous weapon, the Red Breath. Beset by enemies, Rocket and Blackjack agreed to join forces in order to survive. As a result, Jakes and Divine also established an uneasy alliance until their mutual enemies were defeated. Rocket and his crew fled to the robot side of Halfworld, taking refuge in a cantina where business was conducted between the robots and the animals. There they found Uncle Pyko, who had successfully deciphered the Halfworld Bible and explained the origins of their planet. Blackjack attempted yet another double-cross, assembling a new crew from the cantina's patrons. However, Rocket, Wall, Lila, and Pyko were able to escape and met with the head robot of Halfworld. As it turned out, Uncle Pyko wanted to end the toy war as well, wishing to create therapeutic toys for the Loonies free of charge. With the information contained in the Halfworld Bible, the head robot provided one such wonder toy, a special helmet designed to help stabilize the minds of the Loonies. Jakes and Divine launched one more assault in an attempt to maintain their positions of power, but fortunately Blackjack O'Hare decided to stand by Rocket in this final battle. And just when all seemed lost, the robots and the Loonies arrived to help protect their world. With the battle won, a new peace was established on Halfworld, with the Loonies becoming more self-sufficient thanks to the therapeutic power of the Wonder Toy. After that, the robots prepared to depart in their humanoid spaceship, with the animals accompanying them as well. And so Rocket, Lila, Blackjack, and Walrus took to the stars. Or so the story goes. Years went on, Rocket was separated from his crew under, at the time, unrevealed circumstances. He allied himself with other interstellar heroes such as Star-Lord and Groot, fought in the Annihilation Conquest, and became a founding member of the Guardians of the Galaxy. Eventually, he returned to Halfworld, although it seemed very different than he remembered. He reunited with Blackjack and Delilah, but this is where we get a contradictory account of the history of Halfworld. The initial telling of Halfworld's origin comes from the third issue of Rocket Raccoon's 1985 miniseries, with his earliest adventures being documented in that same book. While absurd and cartoonish, this tale has been the accepted canon, even being referenced in more recent books, which we shall confirm shortly. The following revamped history comes from issue number 3 of the 2011 Annihilators series. In it, Blackjack O'Hare explains that the anthropomorphic animals of Halfworld were designed to be friendly and reassuring as a way to calm their patients, and that the inmates lived out therapeutic fantasies via virtual reality. The world also evidently acted as a home for the criminally insane, and the highest security levels were kept underground, guarded by the android clowns to keep things more cheerful looking. Halfworld apparently accepted patients from across the galaxy. Rocket Raccoon was the chief of security, with Blackjack O'Hare as his right-hand man. Over the course of 300 years, they admitted thousands of patients without incident. That was until the day they took in a psychic criminal known as Star Thief, who had the ability to jump from one host body to another. Star Thief resisted all forms of therapy and caused riots and chaos in his attempts to escape. Desperate to keep him contained, Rocket and his allies sealed Star Thief in the deepest levels of the asylum, behind a genetic lock that only they together could open. Rocket then volunteered to have his memory of those events erased before he left the planet, ensuring that Star Thief could never be freed. The implication here is that the previous version of events were some kind of half-remembered fantasy, and not the true story of Halfworld. However, in the very next issue, we see the humanoid ship that was built by the Halfworld robots, confirming that some version of the events of the 1985 series did in fact happen. Elements of this story are also contradicted by later issues which reference the original 1985 version of events. For example, in his story of Halfworld's origin, Blackjack described Divine as being their beloved head of psychology. However, in the 2014 Free Comic Book Day issue of Rocket Raccoon, Divine was back to being his classic sinister self. And Blackjack O'Hare also went back to his mercenary work around that time. Most tellingly, in Guardians of the Galaxy number 8 from 2019, we get more details of Rocket's past, in which he was a service animal for a foul-mouthed war veteran named Kevix. This story confirms that Rocket was born on Halfworld, a galactic insane asylum that was abandoned by its founders, where the patients were left in the care of the robotics staff. Kevix suffered from PTSD, but he would watch old war movies with Rocket curled up on his lap, and the two were happy together. That is until the day the robots grew tired of their role and took the animals away to transform them into their replacements. Now, this doesn't necessarily invalidate Blackjack's story, since this could just be what led to the animals being responsible for the inmates, but it does confirm what was written in the Gideon's Bible, that ancient scientists came to Halfworld to establish an asylum. Their budget was cut and the scientists were forced to return home, thus leaving the asylum in the care of the robots. But of course, since Gideon's Bible was actually the scientists' logbook, it ends with their departure from Halfworld. Events after that, as revealed in the 1985 miniseries, were largely speculation on the part of Uncle Pico, based on their own existence and the presence of the Loonies. Furthermore, the Loonies seem to have been confirmed to still live on Halfworld in 2020's Guardians of the Galaxy number 3. It should also be noted that the events of the 2011 Annihilator series can't simply be discarded, since they were also subtly referenced later. Upon Rocket's return to Halfworld, Lila confirmed that while he was gone, she married Blackjack. But later, Blackjack turned, or perhaps returned, to mercenary work as seen in the 2014 Rocket Raccoon series. This led to a confrontation between Blackjack and Rocket, which ended when the wily Raccoon deflected a missile back towards his foe, and O'Hare was seemingly killed in a fiery explosion. However, he was later seen alive in Guardians of the Galaxy number 3 from 2020, in which he referenced his previous appearances, stating that the last time he encountered Rocket he barely survived because he blew him up, and also that he blamed Rocket for his divorce. This leads to the conclusion that, as much of a nonsensical mess as it all seems to be, it's all canon. There's yet to be an official explanation as to how the disparate accounts of Halfworld's history fit together, but each of them contains an element of truth. With all that said, let's attempt to place those elements together into a cohesive timeline. First, the ancient scientists settle on Halfworld, building their asylum. They likely built the facilities and technology and accepted inmates from across the galaxy. There were lush, verdant fields where low-security patients were cared for, as well as high-security facilities for their more dangerous inmates. It's not confirmed whether the android clowns were built by the scientists, the robots, or the animals, but guarding these facilities seems to have been their initial purpose. I would also theorize that these two locations exist on separate sides of Halfworld, although this hasn't been confirmed. After some time, the scientists abandoned the planet, leaving the robots in charge. When the robots eventually gained sentience and surpassed their original programming, they genetically modified the animals to replace them, including Rocket. The modification also made the animals exceptionally long-lived, and for 300 years they ran the facility. While the higher security facilities continued to run smoothly, the patients on the green side of Halfworld were left to roam free, and their descendants became the Loonies. Meanwhile, the robots all retreated to the industrial side of Halfworld, where they built their giant humanoid ship. Rocket and the animals also watched over the Loonies, with Rocket being a ranger of some kind, and eventually some version of the events of the Toy War happened. At the end of that conflict, the robots left the planet with at least some of the animals joining them. Since the robot ship was later seen back on Halfworld, I would presume that after the robots settled elsewhere, the animals returned with the ship. And I would further presume that it was after this that Star Thief was admitted to Halfworld. After Star Thief was locked away, Rocket's memories were wiped and he left the planet to ensure that the villain would never be released. He was left with half-remembered versions of his exploits as a ranger. Not entirely fictional stories, but almost certainly embellishments of actual events. And we do know that after that, Rocket traveled space without much purpose, at one point befriending the space pirate crew, the Starjammers. Eventually, he ran afoul of the alien race, the Kree, and was imprisoned in one of their holding facilities, where his cellmate was a Flora Colossus from Planet X, known as Groot. At first, Rocket was belligerent, not willing to accept Groot's friendship, and not being able to understand his strange three-worded language. But as time rolled on, the two became close. As they bonded, Rocket learned to understand Groot. They eventually met and fought alongside the interstellar hero Star-Lord, and together they eventually became Guardians of the Galaxy. And of course, Groot later accompanied Rocket when he eventually returned to Halfworld to regain his memories and defeat Star Thief once again. And that is the origin of Rocket Raccoon. But thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like, share the video, and subscribe for more marvelous content. Be sure to leave a comment letting me know what Marvel hero or villain you want to hear about next, and as always, the issues referenced in this video are listed in the description below if you would like to read them for yourself, as well as links to other places you can find me, including my Patreon page where for only $1 a month you can get your name in these special thanks here. So until next time, true believers, Excelsior!